The most dangerous person in the world is Randi Weingarten. It's not a close call. If you ask who's the most likely to take this republic down, it would be the teachers' unions and the filth that they are teaching our kids and the fact that they don't know math and reading or writing, end quote. Take down the republic. Randi Weingarten, I know you're effective, but that's something.
I mean, I do not understand why they are afraid of knowledge, or why they are afraid of kids critically thinking.
Oh, yes. That's Communist John Denver. Mad once again that Corey DeAngelis is busting her up as he has so many times. Joining me now, my friend Corey DeAngelis. He has a book out that I want you to go buy. It's called The Parent Revolution, and that is a revolution going on in this country, and he is on the vanguard of it. Corey, I love that Communist John Denver hates you. It just blesses me to no end.
Well, they really stepped in it by fighting to keep the schools closed as long as possible. Randi was calling Trump's plan to reopen schools reckless, callous, and cruel. They were lobbying the CDC to make it more difficult to reopen schools in person. She was even threatening safety strikes. So she overplayed her hand and awakened a sleeping giant. Parents who want more of a say in their kids' education, we should really give her the school choice MVP trophy. In fact, I actually dedicated the book to her for overplaying her hand, showing her true colors, and sparking a parent revolution. And if you want to take Ted Cruz's advice, Senator Ted Cruz on the back, he endorsed the book and he says, ruin Randi Weingarten's day by reading this book. I mean, because she must really feel bad about unleashing education freedom inadvertently and promoting homeschooling inadvertently for showing she's a horrible human being that hurt kids by locking them out of their schools for so long. And then when they got back into the schools, she's been fighting nonstop for radical indoctrination in those institutions. Parents want the schools to focus on the basics, not on indoctrination.
Corey, I'm glad you brought up the CDC thing, because this is not something I have let go, as so many people know. Would you just do me a favor? You are the man who wrote the book on all this. Walk us down memory lane and how that woman, how they acted during COVID when it comes to education, how they stuck their nose in pandemic stuff. What did she do?
You must have thought that they were all drama teachers. I mean, the Chicago Teachers Union, one of her local affiliates, actually panned for an interpretive dance video. It was freaking embarrassing. If you thought the math and reading test scores were atrocious in Chicago, you really should feel bad for the kids who want to do extracurriculars like dance, because they did this pathetic, embarrassing video and it was horribly put together too. Their videographers were horrible. But the point is, they did everything they could just to not go back to work, whereas everybody else was going back to work. The private schools were open, the daycares were open, private businesses were open, and you had them deleting tweets saying that the push to reopen schools is rooted in sexism, racism, and misogyny. They threw every leftist buzzword at the wall to see what would stick, just so they could hold children's education hostage to secure ransom payments from the taxpayer. And guess what? They got $190 billion in so-called COVID relief since March of 2020, but their plan quickly backfired because they showed families what was happening in the classroom through remote learning, which, Jesse, we should really just call it remotely learning. There wasn't a lot of learning going on, but families did get to see the radical leftist critical race theory, gender ideology garbage that was being shoved down children's throats in government schools for far too long, and that awakened the parents like we've never seen before, and they're never going to forget that. They're not going to unsee what they saw starting in 2020. And as Vodi Bakum famously said, we cannot continue to send our children to Caesar for their education and be surprised when they come home as Romans. The good news here is parents aren't surprised anymore. They've woken up. They've seen what's going on. We see it every day on social media. Thank goodness for Libs of TikTok for exposing the rot in the government school system. And the best solution is to say, hey, if you're going to label me as a domestic terrorist for showing up at school board meetings, and they did that with the National School Boards Association, they had the FBI actually create a threat tag for parents, specifically for ones protesting at school board meetings. They mobilized the federal government to clamp down on parents because they saw parents as a nuisance. They saw parents as getting in the way between them and and indoctrinating their kids with leftist ideology. So this is an important fight. This revolution is one that we're winning. It's one that we have to win because the left almost doesn't even have to have kids anymore, and they can still influence our culture through controlling the K through 12 government school system. They get millions of kids that they can indoctrinate every year for 13 years of their lives for 7 hours a day. And you can't beat that without fighting back to take our schools, without being able to take your money elsewhere, without supporting school choice. And look, 11 states have already done this. They've passed universal school choice. Iowa, Arkansas, Utah. I can go over the rest of them, but there's a bunch. Oklahoma. It's red states that are doing this. They're engaging in friendly competition to empower parents. And that's how we fight back and strike at the root to empower parents. They can become their own interest group that's even more powerful than the teachers' unions because they care about their kids more than anybody else, certainly more than bureaucrats sitting in offices hundreds of miles away.
Corey, there are so many parents watching right now who want that kind of thing that you just said for their kids. They want school choice. They want education freedom. They want to be able to send their kids where they want to send them. What can a parent do who's watching right now? Because if you don't have, one of these great laws that's been passed, you feel helpless, you're frustrated, you got your kids stuck in some garbage school system. What should the parent watching do if they want change?
Make your voices heard. Show up at the school board meeting. If they don't listen to you, run for school board and kick their butts out of office. And if they still don't listen to you and you're in a deep blue area, perhaps you should start calling your legislators and pressuring them as well so that you can take your kids somewhere else to a school that's aligned with your values. You want universal school choice so that you have leverage, so that the school districts and the school boards don't try to just bully and silence you, so that they actually listen to you and look at you as a partner, as a customer. And the last chapter, I also go over some other things that you can do to tweak the system to improve the public schools as well, including aligning the school board elections with the general election. The teachers unions don't want you to have a high voter turnout because they want their special interest to control the outcome. So they do these elections on random times so that they can win. But these same people who are saying Republicans are a threat to democracy and are suppressing votes, they suppress votes when it comes to education issues because their special interest, the teachers unions, can control the outcomes that way. You also just want more of sunlight. It's the best disinfectant. Let's have transparency in the public schools. Imagine the left fighting against that, and they do in some cases. They've actually vetoed bills. Governor Evers in Wisconsin, for example, vetoing transparency bills. And so that should cause the Democrats to lose votes if they do block simple legislation like that in the future. So let's see where the money's going. Look, it's going towards administrative bloat. It's going towards Randi Weingarten, who makes over $500,000 a year. It's not going to the classroom. New York City, leftist crap schools there, they spend $40,000 per student per year. Chicago, $30,000 per student per year. And in Baltimore, they have dozens of schools with 0% proficiency rates. 0 kids in 40% of their high schools in Baltimore can't do math proficiently. 0 kids. It's insane, and it needs to stop. And the best way to do it is to engage in this parent revolution, win some elections, become a political juggernaut, a political force to be reckoned with. And I document a lot of these wins, and it's a blueprint for success for how you can win in your state too. It's even if you don't care about education, if your kids aren't in the public school system, if you don't have any kids, you should still care about this because the left can use the school system to their advantage to change the rest of society and the rest of the policies that you care about too.